tonight. Guys, you can ask questions, and I hope that
I have a question.
the other question.
When you put cacti in the ground, when you get them from the nursery or something like that, do you augment the soil with potting soil or fertilizer or anything? You just put them. Okay, you just put them in the ground.
Right.
And try to keep the ground uniform.
Right.
Don't make it special just around the roots.
One thing I would suggest is if you unpot something from nursery and it has a big ball of roots and soil all around it, knock that stuff off and put it in the ground.
Shake
it up.
Just shake up the root ball.
Okay.
And those roots have a chance to go into whatever your garden soil is.
I have a tendency of taking whatever I get from the nursery and just digging a hole and putting it in. And that has potting soil and perlite and all of this other stuff. I didn't know whether I should shake that off or not.
As odd as it sounds, there's almost like a barrier there between that old root ball and the new soil, and the roots will just stay there.
Yeah,
For a long time. It can take many months to years before they start migrating into the adjacent. So, if you crack, really kind of crack that up.
Okay.
And loosen that up and then drop it down.
It depends on the texture of the soil. If the soil is friable, it's okay, but if it's typical of lumpy soil, you've got to break up that surface. Otherwise, I planted tomatoes in Moses Lake, Washington, umpteen years ago, and when nothing much happened. When I picked the plant up that fall, it was sitting in the same hole I made for it to start with.
Well, that's what I was afraid of. So.
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of the potting soil mixes that you get, especially for things like tomatoes, they're high in forest products.
Right.
Yeah.
Bark.
That's bad news for.
It's hard to find stuff that doesn't have wood in it.
That's
The
very
bark
true.
and things like that.
You got to read the label. You got to go out and mix.
Yeah.
Lynn.
What happens if the soil you're putting it into is nothing but clay?
Break it up. Yeah. You'll have to.
And okay, that's what I've been doing. I've been putting in sand and gravel.
Right.
Okay.
Be careful with sand. That tends to be loose stuff you buy. Gravel is okay.
Okay.
Quarter inch and bigger, even inch lumps. Something to make the water run through the system, but let the air get the stuff. Yeah.
Sand and clay in the right proportions makes concrete.
Yeah. Now that repotting plan, and even if you're like I do, if my soil mix hasn't changed much over the years, I still try and shake as much of the old soil off of the soil ball of the plant I'm repotting, because I've had years of putting our hard water through the pot, and I found that the plants do a lot better if I try and shake, 70, 80, 90% of the soil off of the root and then plant it in the new soil.
Elliot?
Would the members of the panel please introduce themselves?
Read the name tag. Oh, nice.
Just introduce yourself. And the gentleman on the left here is?
Oh, here.
Romero.
Ralph Peters. Steve Brack.
I didn't hear that guy.
I'm going to continue with Ralph's last question. After you knock the soil off, you cut back to the
Well, it depends on
the pot.
It depends on how the roots look.
the roots are.
If the roots look rotten or obviously broken, you have to get rid of them.
And the time of the year, too. If you have a repotting plant that's actively growing, you probably have a nice, healthy root system going. And if you start chopping on that, you want to set that plant back a little while before the recovery time to get the root.
Yeah. Would add the second point to this of repotting plants, putting them in the ground or in a pot. Don't flood them after you just planted them. That's a recipe for disaster, because you've broken root, no matter what you've done, broken get into the plant, and you're increasing the chances that you kill the plant wrong.
Repot in dry soil
Yeah.
and don't water it. You're not potting up tomatoes.
Something about this is that a lot of cactus books that they can buy or pick up, whatever, have the line in there saying, transplant with as little disturbance of the roots as possible. That's complete nonsense. Somebody said that 100 years ago, and they were just copying. A lot of books are just copies of other books. They've got their own ideas, but they copy somebody else's. You can't possibly transplant anything and not disturb the roots.
Another thing that, depending on the kind of plant, for cactus especially, you might want to let them sit out for a while before you replant them, especially if you did cut roots and damage them.
Yeah, or pot them up in extremely dry soil that
You can't hurt it by just taking out maximum the soil off, let it sit for a week or so, let the wound heal, and then just do whatever you want with it afterwards.
Yeah, I got a big clump of claret cup out on the mesa, and I'm not certain that when I planted it facing the thing with the
Okay, good luck.
No, but I think I did, but I'm just not sure. I should have painted it something,
When the sun angle, go ahead.
Well, but when I potted it, or when I planted it, I didn't mess with the roots or anything. I just put it in similar soil and everything, and just put it. It was really large, and anyway, it's been about 3 months or so, and it looks good, but who knows?
you haven't got orange mush yet.
No, nothing looks like it's dying or anything like that.
And when it starts to warm up and the sun angle gets more intense,
Right.
look at the top of the plant, and the epidermis in the plant will look like it's kind of fading and it's turning yellowish.
Right.
That's sun stress. What that you can do then is take a piece of shade cloth, put that over the plant, and leave that there for a few weeks actually, and that'll help kind of
Help it.
maybe kind of reduce that sun stress. Yeah.
Okay.
You've lost roots.
What's that?
You've lost roots in the transplant, and so the plant is going to be stressed as it's trying to put in new roots into the ground to support itself. And the problem with not knowing south properly can be alleviated somewhat by shading it.
Okay.
Well, one of the things I always notice is I forget to mark which direction it was put. If you watch, now I've got as far as cell phone, I actually like to take pictures of them, because usually they're gonna direct toward the sun first. If you watch how the angle, especially on you never say the name of the carrot, but like you've gotten, it kind of points toward the direction of the sun. Now, I learned that from looking at barrel cats. See that really notorious barrel cat.
Right.
On these twigs, often they're gonna be a little bit purplish on the south side, much more than the. But because of when you planted them, I don't think you're gonna have an issue.
Probably not.
They've got a lot of time to acclimatize, and when they wake up in the spring, they should adjust, and I doubt they'll even be an issue. Unless we start getting like 100-degree weather in May or
Oh, and as far as the shading device goes, an alternative using shading cloth is I'll just get one of my big weeds, or a few big weeds, and pour them over the ground.
You can do that.
And the breeze, of course, from the bottom, that's good. And it lets more lighting every day.
Yeah, I do it too.
And when you store them,
When you don't need the wind anymore, you talk.
Right, yeah.
But
Cheryl?
I've got a barrel cactus question. I've got a big one that's about a foot tall. Got a barrel cactus now with about a foot tall, and it really leans over to the south, where I'm concerned about it staying in the ground. Would there be some way of trying to get it into more of a vertical position? And if so, how would I do that without not risking killing.
How long has it been in the ground?
At least 10 years,
15 years.
15 years.
Well, you can try.
It's gonna have a lot of roots after 10 years. With Lazennies especially, when I was in Tucson, we rescued with Lazennies that were this big, and they had these lateral roots that went 10 to 12 outside of the plant. So you have to really do some serious chopping with that. What you might consider doing is getting like a decorative rock or something and just put it on that side so the plant's got some kind of heat in it. And it'll continue to stabilize.
Right.
The only risk of falling over it would have is if you get a really saturating rainfall, it passes a point of an angle, and then they'll just flop right over.
And they do that in the wild.
Oh, yeah, I've seen lots of them just playing on
When
the side.
they get old,
They
they
survived the
find
fire.
it.
But they look fine. They look fine.
So try to correct it a little bit and then prop it up with a rock.
I brought rocks.
Oh my God, it's green.
This plant right here was in a little tiny pot, but now that it's had more water, it's leaking out. But I have no idea what it is.
Joy, by the way, is the one that designed our.
The teacher.
Very nice.
It looks like an aeonium. There's a winter growing plant.
I had a kiwi, but I don't know. I thought it might be one of those, but,
I think it is.
It's an aeonium. It was like a gradual increase in life over.
it had a picture window like that, but it didn't get water, and it was in a pot about that big, so it was for 7 years, so that's what it looked like.
Okay.
Let me know.
You gotta be careful.
Not for
with-
me, because I bought it from a lady like that.
Careful with windows. To warn you about windows. Windows are glass. Glass absorbs ultraviolet light almost 100%. If your plant needs ultraviolet light for any reason, behind the window is not gonna be where it is. The English, if you read their books, have been bitching for 100 years, or their cacti don't bloom in their glass house. Well, turkeys, it's a glass house, not the wrong kind of light for flowering. Plastic greenhouses are no problem. Glass, no good.
Unless you buy an old enough house. Unless you buy an old enough house. My 100-year-old windows don't have any UV coating on them.
Glass is glass.
It's not a coating, it's the glass.
It's the glass itself that cuts off the ultraviolet. You can go in a glass greenhouse, take off all your clothes, do whatever you want. You will not get a suntan or a sunburn or anything because the glass does not allow the UV to pass, which is why you get burned.
After 100 years, wouldn't the glass be full and let the rest of it through?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I thought.
You can probably.
Are you planning on breaking up the container? Because there's so many different
There's a bunch
kinds of
of
plants that are going to want different stuff.
I'm just temporary. Yeah. They were all in little size boxes. They only have so much space inside.
Oh, okay.
They're currently together.
It's not cutting, baby. This we're talking about glass. It's a couple of different parts that don't like. Okay, well, it turns out, I've done experimental methods. I grow a lot of seedlings, and ultraviolet is good for those guys to grow with. It turns out that ordinary fluorescent light bulbs have, if they're closer to the plant, which they must be, have enough UV in there that you can, it'll feed the plant. Another, for instance, I garden also. One of the things I learned real quick was if you start your plants behind a window in your living room, whatever it is, and put them outside, they fry, they die, because there's no UV tolerance in the thing. So there's a big gardening lesson, but I did do the experiment with LED lights about 6, 7 years ago. The modern LED lights that take the place of fluorescent are as good as fluorescence as far as having enough UV to give the plants tolerance. And I grew the same 32 species of cacti underneath fluorescence and underneath LEDs. And I thought I saw better looking plants under LEDs, but I was unprejudiced. The big difference between the two of them, and we should have known, is that LEDs are way cooler than fluorescent. I actually bought an air conditioner for my house, for my cactus plant, because with fluorescent, the room gets so hot. It's 120 degrees in there, nothing like that, not even cactus. But I had a AC in there for several years to keep them cool.
Well, you basically blew my stock with a greenhouse off the wall. Well, I was gonna do mine out of window. That's so many people were gonna do no windows from the really big houses. 16 by 12. You just killed my dream. Because I was.
You're making it cheaper.
Well, I was looking at the
No,
PVC stuff, but how PVC reacts with UV here, forget it.
No, they fill plastic, but
Plastic, the greenhouse, I'm sorry,
Mozzarella.
UV stable plastic, it'll last. But right, greenhouse plastic, it has a coating on one side, which you have to know which side to point it at the sun. My greenhouse is now 21 years old. And I mean, the UV, the plastic has gotten a little crazy. I mean, it's flaking off little fine stuff, but the plants seem to be fine. They're growing as well as they ever did.
Yeah, but with that kind of thinner plastic, how will they survive the winter? You're gonna have to put it an infrared heater.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a heater.
Your species.
Or grow stuff that can tolerate the heat. I actually have at home, I've got my greenhouse next to the garage. There's a 3-foot space between the greenhouse and the garage, and then there's a space over to the other side of it. And for the winter, I actually put some of my plants between the greenhouse and the garage with a fiberglass cover over the top of it, no heater. It gets heat and leakage from the garage and the greenhouse. The greenhouse was kept at about 40 degrees, more or less. And on the other side is another closure that I make every year for the winter. Also no heat, but that's where the more tolerant, the more cold hardy stuff. Trichocereus, Echinocerius, all kinds of stuff go in there. And if it doesn't survive, don't grow it.
That ain't gonna work for the greenhouse.
The point is there's tons of stuff that you could grow in a greenhouse that is 25 degrees or warmer. Yeah, overnight, like this. Yeah, the only thing about the covering is it slows the rate of heat loss. So you have a chance where as the sun goes down, the heat's giving up, etc. And before it's all gone, the sun's up again, dumping in heat. This only works during normal times. I mean, sometimes it gets beyond 20 below. It gets that.
Yeah.
Also, you use the get that.
Well, you need to buy this plastic at the specialty stores, and it's like a 2-layer coating. And
Right.
you put the fan in between, so it keeps it separated and for all purposes isolated as well. And it lasts because it's treated, it has a coating on it. So there is a shop, it's called Gags, whatever that is.
Garden supply. I know from garden supply.
And that's where you get that plastic.
So, just to give an idea, I put up a little hoop house in, I forget when I finished it, but last fall, early in the winter. It's a PVC frame hoop house. It's like 20 by 12. And I threw 2 layers of 8 mil greenhouse poly over it. It's 20 years old with plastic, so it's not very clear anymore, but it lets a lot of, the heat builds up and the plants are fine under it. They love it. And I got down to 10 degrees one night. Most nights haven't been below 20, but it has had no heat, and it has not frozen inside. And I did put a heater in there, but the heater never would come on.
Don't forget that when you build like that over dirt, you now have this tremendous,
There's a heat thing,
underneath all the dirt.
and all the plants and pots and everything that's in there and all the junk is holding heat. And this was sealed most of the winter, not vented. So in the day, it'll be like 80, 85 in there or more. Well, now I had to uncover it because now it's getting over 100.
Right.
Well, I didn't have to, the wind did it for me. 2 days ago, it was blowing about 85 miles an hour.
Welcome. And we get the questions from some new people here.
Gary, well, I'm an old person, never mind. If for landscaping cactus, obviously if they're in a pot, they're in a pot by themselves, but for landscaping cactus, where you get a lot of stuff and you're gonna have other things in your yard that are native xeric plants, but not necessarily cacti or succulents. Are there any that are toxic for the cacti?
Creosote bush.
Well, yeah.
Compliment that.
You never, that's something else I can think of.
The only one I can think of is creosote.
What is
Not
that?
entirely true, though. I've seen a lot of cacti growing under creosote.
Yeah, I've never
Yeah,
had.
it depends on the,
You don't
where the roots are.
Yeah, I've never had
Bit
creosote
exaggerated.
bother anything.
Right, and it depends, I mean, if the cactus is sitting in the root of a creosote bush, it probably is gonna go. But I mean, the creosotes are going down as far and as fast as they can. So up around the thing, it's probably relatively poison free, but it's been studied for years and years. Definitely, the reason the creosote bushes are spaced evenly across the desert typically is because that's a kill zone. They kill each other off.
Well,
Before we move on, I just want an elaboration, like, why, what is it? Because I don't know anything about creosote. Why do they kill each other?
They give off toxin because that way they get all the water.
Oh.
It's just a matter of survival.
You know that brown tar stuff that they have on telephone poles?
Yep.
That's creosote.
Yeah, no.
That's why they stand there for 60 years without rotting.
just, let you guys know back to creosote bushes that, if you know, it's Sletta Hill back there on I-25, that whole hill is the most northern growing range of creosote.
Oh, don't get Ferguson started.
Okay? And that whole mountain, that whole hill is one creosote bush. You know that?
That's all.
It's all one creosote bush. That whole hill is one bush.
However, there are some bushes where the Santa Fe River comes in
Right.
and hits the lake,
Cochise?
Cochise Lake. There's a little
Scattering in
lake
between.
north of that, about a mile. That's, to my knowledge, the furthest northward.
There's Stanley Lake that are farther north. Stanley Lake,
Which way?
is that what the name of it is? It's
Stanley.
the one that's by, like Tucumcari or Las Vegas? Is that between Las Vegas? Story. Oh, I thought it was Stanley, okay. Well, there's some creosote up there.
I have a question for the camera.
Joy?
What plant gave you guys trouble? Which one do you know? Which one? I can't grow that, and do you know why?
Wow. I can't grow, the tropical cacti from Brazil very well. I can't grow tropical, pachypodiums like from Madagascar. Part of it is that the air is so dry here, and those plants like higher humidity. And I'm not willing to keep them as warm as they would like to be.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna grow them.
Yeah, that's a general rule. You can't keep the humidity up where they want, particularly in the winter and the temperature.
It's not just humidity. In the winter, you have to heat them a little more, and in the summer, you have to cool them. So you almost have to have an air conditioning, like a refrigerate it, that conditioning in your greenhouse.
You don't pay for that. My brother was for years on that one. Cacti for 45 years. I get seeds, I grow them, and if they survive, fine, if they don't, then I don't grow them anymore.
Reckon, Rob, you want to
No other specific species.
say anything about that?
Can't grow, yeah, I go along with Steve, but it's stuff that I'm not willing to do the heating or the humidity that's required for them. I tried to do some South African and some native Hawaiian plants, and they didn't do it.
What if you did them with,
Right back there.
Oh, I was curious, what like species would you recommend if I was looking for a cactus for like fruit to eat? Cause like, I'm from Southern Arizona originally, so I'm used to like ficus indica being like the go-to for that. I don't know about full party.
Penny.
Engelmann's prickly pear.
Okay.
They give it lots of room. The pad, you can get another large, and you can get 300 fruit off of a good size one.
Oh, okay.
And that'll give you about 40 cups of juice, which you then freeze, and then you use to make all kinds of goodies.
Yeah, we'll use them like
lemonade?
Margaritas, jello, all kinds of things, pie.
Yeah. But you need the right prickly pear, the right individual almost, don't you, Penny?
What I've noticed when I first started doing this, I had cow tongues, which are the ones that have like this, and they're really prolific. I used those, and I had one that Dave wasn't sure what it was, that had rounder pads and browner fruit, but they looked okay. But in the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, the ones that were more along the line of the cow tongues were ripening later, they weren't sweet. And so I dug that sucker up and got him out of the ground, and I just go to the Engelmann right now. And Macrocentra,
I've had this before. Okay.
some of the native ones here that have the smaller fruit, if you really want your jelly to set up, might have problems. You can eat them, they're just sweeter. Don't break it too.
That's not wrong, but if you got one fruit from one variety, one fruit from another variety, mix them together, they don't mix well, I heard.
They ignite.
No.
If you can make jam with something, they don't.
One summer, we were up in North Albuquerque acres, and we picked like 5 different kinds of fruit, and it was all juicy. And we cooked that stuff twice, so we had twice the pectin, and it made syrup, and it only made syrup. And I talked to somebody who did wine from prickly pears, and he said it's tricky. And I had a friend who made wine with some of my prickly pears, and it was horrible. Although she thought it turned out really well. But when you mix it, if you get one of those in there with an enzyme that doesn't like pectin, it's going to ruin the whole batch. But then, if you want to, you can still do syrup and make lots of margaritas.
I tried the fruit from the local native cacti, and I just ate them fresh, so I wasn't trying to process them, but I found many of the colyphanthus were really good. Like colyphantha macromeris, they're very tasty. They're bulletproof. You can grow them here. They're almost indestructible. And I tried some glandular cactus fruits, and they were really good. Almost.
How big are these fruits?
Not very big. They're not so big.
Okay, Engelmann's going to give you something the size of an old baby's jar.
No, you can't.
There's lots of his from it.
You can't live off the fruit. They're tasty. And
I want to recommend the kind of serious fruit, big juicy thing, but the Trigophiasis, especially, which is not locally hardy here, but the Dramenea, that has a great big fruit and it's good tasting to me. I try not to, I don't eat much cactus fruit because to me that was the seed. I want the seed.
Well, just do the fruit.
there's quite a few local cacti that have.
By the way, there's stuff on the website that Penny put together on handling prickly pears and graphics and all sorts of stuff.
Now, using the past,
Great, did you have a fruit?
3 different handouts on
I do have a question, and it's about, strategies for making a cactus branch other than damaging the apical bud.
Well, what if it's a cactus that usually doesn't branch?
Yeah, well,
Is that what your,
yeah,
is that your question?
yeah.
Like, for example, Eriocarpus fissuratus rarely branches. That's a slow process, but, so you want something to branch that normally doesn't.
Yeah.
You have to damage the meristem.
You have to damage the meristem
to get it to go.
There's no question about it.
Okay.
Because the meristem is what gives up a hormone to make the whole thing grow symmetrically and so forth. The same thing as if you have trees like a cherry tree and you want to slow them down, if you just go chop like that, you're gonna have 8,500 new things coming up because each little guy is its own source of stuff for the below thing. So no, you can't make a cactus branch if it doesn't branch normally without destroying the meristem.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean you have to just scratch the entire cactus.
Right.
If you literally just poke
the hole in the top of it, quarter inch wide hole, because you want the cells that give off the hormone to be gone. And then it'll go out.
Some people use a hot glue gun.
I saw a question back there.
Oh, yeah,
Glue gun.
you're done.
Yeah, we're
I'm
done.
growing Romero cactuses under a lamp for
Yeah.
seed. Will they grow in the house?
Put them outside in the summer. I've got a saguaro that I started the seeds 20 years ago. It's about this big now because it's in a 2-gallon pot.
Yeah.
I've got the same age plant in a 1-gallon pot that's a little smaller. The same age plant in a pot about half this size. And those guys are this big. But you can grow a good sized saguaro if you put it outside in the summer.
Yeah. And they can take a little frost.
They can
too.
take it in Tucson. When I lived there, I learned that the store can take it can stay frozen for like a day and a half, but it's got to warm up at that point, otherwise it dies. So you can make mistakes, but not too bad with one.
If you put the seedlings under like the filtered light of a tree in the summertime, they'll do beautifully.
Or
Yeah.
Jack baby where you get the filter.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually, again, this is from the Florida National Monument when I went there to Arizona a long time ago. But I learned there about how flora grow in nature. The bird comes in the tree and crap out the seeds that they eat from the plant. And underneath this tree, you'll find 1, 5, 30, whatever, saguaros growing up. And after a large number of years, 30, 40, these guys are getting up through the tree. At that point, they start having real light. And the whole business is that now the saguaros are out competing the trees that used to protect them. And they kill the trees after 50, 60 years.
But be careful when you take plants outside. There's a lot of plants we'll sell at the spring show and at the spring fair that are great patio plants. But, inside the winter and outside on your patio in the summer. But you need to be careful of your sunburn.
Yeah.
Just like people will sunburn. You need to move them out slowly into the sunlight or use a filter or something, but got to, or a tree, pay attention.
Yeah, an easy thing to do, what I've done, depending on where I was living, you have like a space in the yard that gets an hour of sunlight a day. Find that space and put the plant there. So for 2 or 3 weeks, the plant is acclimated and then you can move it around. Or even just using the sides of cardboard or actually plywood, because it doesn't melt in the rain. Make a plywood space so that plant gets only light for, and the light's got to be between 9 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. Light 3 hours from local noon is what's good for the plant, but that will also hurt the plant. Early morning light, late afternoon light is useful for the plant. Also be careful about freezing. In Tucson or in Arizona, they can take only, but usually it only comes like 6 in the morning and by 9 it's all up. If we get Tony down there, it might be all day and it will kill them. So they need to be protected.
Question, back there.
Oh, so, you guys might not have the answer that I want.
We'll give you 3 at least.
How do you keep your greenhouse cool in the summer?
Aha.
Open a window.
I whole side off, and I have my door,
Right.
but still, you know, it's 105 degrees, 6 weeks straight in the core, and it got up to 120 in my greenhouse last.
Shade cloth.
I got a shade
Cloth and ventilation.
But you've got to take the sides off.
Right.
Because it's impossible, otherwise wind hit a blow that hot air around.
And you don't,
I actually do this in the summer, I empty my greenhouse, all 14 feet by 22 feet of it.
mine's about double that.
Those
Yeah.
plants under shade cloth to get out of there because I can't keep the greenhouse cold enough, cool enough. What I do is I keep small plants actually in the greenhouse because I rig it so that there's the greenhouse door has a screen in it. I've got 2 18-inch fans in the back of the greenhouse. I'm blowing the outside air over those guys and out the back. Nothing on the edges of the greenhouse because it's too hot. Well, so you can do that, but that is the big problem. This is I've told people this thing about greenhouse for the last 40 years. A small greenhouse is a death trap.
And mine's fairly large, it's about 20 by 40.
Yeah, that's great, because the bigger the greenhouse, the better. But the people that buy these little hobby greenhouses,
I had 2 of those in Tucson, and it would get up to 115, 118 in that house. And all I had was one fan exhausting hot air out. Rarely lost any.
That's, I think I only lost 1 plant last year, but
Move air
nothing
movement.
thrives. So I think I need to.
Hot air moving is better than having hot air.
Or put some.
That's what I said.
Right.
Do any of you have a system, a cooling system, or you just?
No.
too expensive.
Open the sides, they'll tie in.
I used to be a greenhouse for the warehouse company, the big tree growing guy in the Northwest. We had greenhouses, experimental greenhouses. We were actually studying how to grow lettuce for the tree growing company, which is another long story. But our greenhouses, to keep them at 68 degrees for the lettuce, it took an HVAC plant as big as the greenhouse. This is at 49 degrees north.
Billy,
Well,
Yeah.
of course.
somebody wasn't using their own money.
That's exactly true, and you know, all those things, but the lettuce and cucumbers and stuff, nobody's gonna give you $10 for head of lettuce that you're growing.
Well, for people that haven't asked the question before,
I have a plant that I brought in, it's South African, so just wanted to see what you guys thought. I'm trying to have it down.
What is it?
It's very small.
Here's the South African.
Where you get it?
this is from the Canary Islands.
Oh.
Canary.
Sorry, they need little, frequent, small amounts of water.
Like misting.
Water is offered.
And it's a cool season grower, right?
Cool season. grower.
Like that, what you brought in earlier, that aeonium, that's a winter grower. That's so during the cool
See
part of
them
the year.
type thing.
And you were, somebody mentioned about plants dying in the summer in a greenhouse. sometimes you think, well, I'll water it, and it'll keep it from dying. For a lot of them, it doesn't work. No, if they don't want water when they're really hot, they go semi-dormant. You know, they don't want the water.
Yeah, and that includes a lot of plants that grow around here locally. There are two groups called Cacti and Cacti. And yeah, they'll take a little water in the heat of the main summer, but they come from places like southern Utah, northern Arizona, where they don't usually get a lot of rain until monsoon season starts. And if you water the seasons out of them, then they'll rot.
Did you think this was Monensi? I think it's Monensi Palace. They're from the Canary Islands. They grow up high. The Canary Islands have a lot of volcanoes. They're up at higher elevation, so it's cool.
Also humidity, because we're sitting in a.
Yeah, higher humidity. Yeah, higher humidity. But the soil's pretty good on these. They're in Florida.
Oh.
And they often grow on lava. So.
It enhances the humidity.
Right.
Mist from that. Water often. Gotcha. And 4 times a week. Okay.
But not smoking wet.
A day.
Right.
Just like a few squirts from the.
Yeah, right. No, like 6 squirts, 8 squirts.
It's more important that the plant gets the water than having wet soil. They like to be dewed and mists and clouds come over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was an odd one. Thank you.
Cool. It's really cool setup.
Yeah. Yeah, can I want to see their class.
Okay.
A lot of questions again, somebody that has this one so far. But we haven't had any questions about insect traps. Isn't that the scourge of the?
What is the proper potting soil? Potting soil area.
What is in your glass? Your jar, your bucket?
Keep going.
What's in your bag?
I just brought a sample of what I pot plants in, and basically what it is, I vary it according to what kind of plant I'm going to do, but for most cacti and succulents, it's 50% perlite, which these guys don't like.
It's great. I love it.
You know that perlite, about 30 to 40% of a sandy loam soil. And then depending on the plant, I will add a small amount of organic matter. And I have compost bins at my house. I'll make compost and screen it, put it in.
If you spend enough time in this hobby, you'll find that the soil recipes that people use approach the infinite number.
What works best for you and your watering regimen?
I'll give you a quick second. I think probably 70 years ago, Cornell University developed a potting soil called Cornell Mix.
No.
At the same time, Davis in California, which used to be part of Berkeley before they split it off, developed something called UCal Mix. Cornell Mix is half peat, half perlite. Half peat, half vermiculite. Okay, 50-50. Cornell Mix, the UCal Mix was sand peat, 50-50.
Oh my gosh.
The Cornell, I'm gonna keep it straight.
Davis.
The Davis is very good. The Davis Mix actually grew out of favor because it was way heavier than the Cornell Mix. I have grown cacti and everything else at God's Earth, Cornell Mix, for now 40-some years. There are people in this room who will tell you that if you put a cactus into a peat soil, you'll kill it.
I have plants that are 8 feet tall, that have been in the same pot for 30 or 40 years. And it's peat vermiculite. I did do this after, when I began to grow a lot of cacti. Because cacti really are not tolerant of being waterlogged. They want the water to run out, right? They want the soil to be airy. They want to have air at the root. So I do a 1/3 peat, one third vermiculite, 1/3 perlite. I've grown everything on God's earth in that. I grow banana plants. I grow figs, anything which you stick into a pot. I've used that same soil.
Flower cactus?
No, Rob, no. Rob, what do you use?
I have a laundry list of stuff in here. A lot of Southwest US and Mexican hard desert species. My mix is 60% quarter-inch pumice that I took the dust off of. 20% native blend soil, and I just dig that from kind of grassy areas, and I've gotten where I just don't even bother sifting it. And then I switched to, I used to use a finely ground based seed starter mix. But after talking to Steve over the last few years, I've switched to using sifted mushroom compost. I sift that through quarter-inch screens. It works beautifully. It's not nasty stuff.
Very rich.
Well, I only use 20%. So by volume, you don't see a lot of it in here.
And what are you sifting out of your mushroom compost?
The bigger chunks, the woody stuff. Then, not done yet. I amend gypsum, some limestone, and then on the recommendation of another friend who still hasn't had enough time to see if it's going to do anything or not, I've started adding a product called azomite, which is a volcanic dust. It comes out of Utah, and it has a fairly long list of trace minerals. And we'll see what that does. This mix has been good for a long-term soil.
So you ask the question, where do you get the pumice?
The pumice we get from Soilution down on the west side of town.
You have to go down there.
Let me amend this. You live in New Mexico. The Jemez Mountains over there, they're about half common. Take a drive, bring a shovel and a bucket. And put
On the roadside.
You need a permit for that?
Road cut. And by the way, you can grow virtually any cactus you want and straight pumice. Nothing else in there, no screwing around.
You have to feed it.
You have to feed, so there's a bunch of sources of this stuff, but the other one was Peter's fertilizer mixes. They've been changed hands and stuff and so forth, but you can still find this, maybe under a different name. I use 20-20-20 with heavy trace elements, lots of trace elements. You feed with that. Oh, and okay, this is gonna get too complicated. No, but anyway, whenever I water with that, and it's 1/8 of a teaspoon per gallon of water. Some of this tablespoon to a gallon of water stuff.
Well,
1/8 of a teaspoon.
Yeah, okay.
One more thing about this pumice, take a drive from Albuquerque to San Isidro and take the road from San Isidro to Los Alamos. And once you get in the hills, there's pumice on both sides, just take it.
Or you can go to Soilutions and for a buck and a half, a gallon bucket, they'll get it ground up.
Sure. Comment?
Yeah.
Just one comment, that if you've got 10 people that grow cactus for years, you've got at least 23 different soil mixes.
Yeah.
I use a lot of decomposed granite, and I get it from Harris Canyon, where you go downhill at the bottom of the hill and start going back up towards the east. on the left-hand side, there's a big, deposit of decomposed granite. I like it a lot. Anybody use it before? I do too. You like it? I've used it too. What's your opinion of it? Well, it worked very well.
Gary, you had another?
I did. How does your seed starting mix differ, or does it differ from that?
I use this for seed too. I use the same, so much I talked about the same.
I grow plants that tend to be hard desert plants from Utah and Arizona, like sclerocactus, mediocactus. And other plants that are difficult to grow, not really.
Those are really hard to grow.
Yeah, anyway,
I've given up.
yeah, they don't like me. The mix that I have are,
Okay, come on.
mine is essentially about half sand, builder sand, if you can get it. A quarter native soil, like these guys are talking about, a good soil, you know, where the summer the grass will be knee high, if you get nice monsoon and salt well. And then another quarter of the red scoria, because red scoria is the best, Steve.
Yeah, and you get red scoria also, that's soil-lution.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything that soil-lution sells is in bulk.
Right.
Nothing is bagged. So you have to bring your own big containers.
Yeah, and to answer your question, I've grown seedlings in this mix, but it's a little thin for some things. And at Steve's suggestion, I've switched to something with more soil, and God forbid, I added some peat to it. And it has some red scoria and sand. And I'm growing lots of lithops in it. Elliot has seen them, they're exploding pots. So it depends on, the other comment that I'd make is, once you find a soil mix that you think works well for you, yeah, stick with it, because if you have 2 or 3 different soil mixes in your greenhouse, it'll be difficult to water properly.
But I guess, would you agree with me? Never buy cactus mix in a bag at the store.
Right.
It's got forest products in it, and I think when the wood breaks down, you get tannins out of the wood.
Yeah.
And it eats up the nitrogen, and the tannins are hard on roots. Tomatoes don't like.
The main organisms that grow on wood are mushrooms. There's very few plants that grow on wood.
Epiphytic cactus like it.
Yes,
But that's
They
about
grow on
it.
wood.
Yeah.
One thing about using pumice or scoria or stuff like that, stuff from Solutions would be fine because they know they're using theirs for horticultural purposes.
Yeah.
But there are instances where pumice and scoria have been toxic to plants. Depending on the volcano they came from, they might have some contaminants that will ruin your collection.
It happened to me once.
Right.
Everything I bought in this batch of pumpkins.
Right. That's why I like perlite, because it's neutral, even though it does float. You know?
Well, I'm looking for questions from people that haven't asked any yet.
Perlite versus vermiculite.
They're
I know what they look like.
Right.
What would be the difference as far as use?
chemical part. Vermiculite retains water, more water than perlite. Vermiculite also exchanges ions. Perlite is nothing.
Neutral.
It's a sponge made of silica, which lets water in there for your plants and lets water run past it. Once it's full, water runs past it. Vermiculite is much more retentive of water than perlite is.
Yeah.
We need water retention in Mexico, pretty much. Don't they both degrade pretty quickly though? What? Don't both perlite and vermiculite degrade very quickly?
Not perlite, 40 years, 40 years in the same pot, still there.
With what?
Vermiculite.
Really? I thought it got compressed and it stopped holding.
No, it's not true. There's lots of lies on the internet.
I'm kind of curious.
I'm curious why you registered on that.
The stuff I get is a smaller, coarse grit, and there's a lot of dust in it. And I found if you don't get a lot of that dust out, it tends to bind up.
Oh.
And it'll kind of harden and get kind of crunchy.
Concrete.
So if you just get that out through like window screens, that's as much as you need to do.
Ralph, can you talk about your aloe?
Okay, my aloe here is growing in the mix I talked about, because I grow almost everything in that mix. From lithops to sclerocactus to aloes, and, they like more of these. That'll scandalize Mr. Carball here. They all seem to like it. But again, part of it is I know how to water because I've been using it for a while. And following Stig's comment, during the growing season, I tend to use fertilizer every time I water, but it's a very small amount. I think it's like, in my case, I fill a 40-gallon trash can with water, and I put maybe 3/8 of a cup of the blue fertilizer, 20-20-20. It used to be feeders, it's now something else. And I also use ammonium sulfate. Because it turns out the nitrogen in ammonium sulfate is immediately available.
And the sulfate's good too.
And the sulfate's good too.
Where do you get that?
Which,
The aluminum sulfate?
ammonium, a big difference, watch aluminum, don't do that.
I buy it on Amazon.
Yeah, or a country store, ranch store.
Like a feed store?
Like a feed store.
Yeah.
But they probably want to sell you a 50-pound bag that will last
Yeah, but
400 years.
you know.
Home Depot has this stuff. In a little bag. A little bag to it. 3 or 4 pound bag.
Ammonium sulfate, huh?
Ammonium sulfate. Ammonium, never aluminum.
Right.
Kill everything.
You get the greens too. Ralph, why isn't your aloe in the ground?
It would be hard to bring it into a meeting. No, I've tried this aloe in the ground in my front yard in the past, but I happened to run across a couple of really cold winters, and I killed them. So I kept a couple of aloes in my quote-unquote warm greenhouse, where it goes down to about 25 regularly in the winter. And it's happy.
You've seen them in nature, Steve. What kind of habitat are they in?
They grow in places that get really cold. Well, I could give a number. There's quite a few winter nights in habitat in some of the areas where they live, where the temperature gets down to about 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's slow to warm up. It's not one of these things where it's 10 and it's up to 60 in the day. But I've seen them near Sutherland where all of the other super hardy stuff lives.
Yeah.
I put one out in my backyard this winter and it did just fine. But this winter was the mildest winter since I've lived here.
Yeah.
But that was only 5 years.
Well, no, I've been here 51 years, but I only had 2 nights below 20. I had 2 nights down to 19, which is just, it's completely weird.
Well, you're living up in the heights now, not in sub-Antarctic balloon.
Yeah.
Lettuce is my background. I live on Donald. And they made seeds and stuff. I have lettuce plants coming up right now. I've done nothing, I haven't watered, nothing, but there are lettuce plants coming up as weeds in my garden.
Yeah. Rick?
I have a fertilizer question. It's a follow-up to what one of you just mentioned a couple of minutes ago. Are cactuses and succulents actually able to use directly ammonium ion?
Sure. All plants can do that.
Okay, so they don't need nitrate?
Oh, no, they need.
Ammonium is
I'm sorry. you can use nitrates also, but the thing about ammonium ion is that you can exchange off that hydrogen and now you have ammonia, and that starts right into the root.
Yeah, the ammonium sulfate is supposedly immediately available. You don't have to do anything hardly to it.
No bacteria necessary.
Yeah, no bacteria to convert like a.
Like in an aquarium.
Yeah.
The farmers that are serious about farming use straight ammonia.
Yeah, no.
Most of the fertilizers that you see on the shelf, the nitrogen comes from urea. And urea has to be broken down by bacteria. So it's kind of hard in a pot with cactus because it's not like a cornfield in Iowa where the moisture is much more uniform. And the bacteria can break down the urea.
Okay. When you plant cactus seed, like in a, starter thing in the house or something, what do you do with them? I mean, the seeds are so small and how do you, do you do it? Do you just sprinkle them on the surface of the dirt and just go away and wait, or
Well,
or do you,
what I do,
what do you do?
I usually start in either 3-inch or 3¼ inch pots. This mix, because it's so rough at the top, what I'll do is take some of the native soil, just pure native soil, and kind of fill in that top surface. I'll sprinkle the seeds on that. Previous to that, I will have soaked the pot completely. Sprinkle the seeds on.
They're wet?
Yeah, oh yeah.
No.
Drop soak after seed, drop soak before seed. It's a big.
After before.
Well, wouldn't that matter if it was
Soil, sprinkle the seeds on, and then I will cover the seeds with a real fine layer of grit. Just like a single layer. Now, if the seeds are very tiny, then I'll put the grit layer down and sprinkle the seeds in there, because you'll have some seeds that are literally like dust.
Right.
Bigger seeds like Pharaoh cactus or Astrophytum, Echinocactus, I cover those to help keep the moisture around the seeds. Yeah. Now, I will put those in a 10 by 20 tray on a heat mat under lights in one of the
You cover it.
extra rooms in my house. Yeah, and I put a dome over the top of it. One of those, it's a setup that's got a matching humidity dome.
Right.
I'll set this, I have a thermostat on the heat mat, and I set it to, it's a weird temperature, 87 degrees. Not 85, not 90, 87.
That is weird. 82, Rob.
And so the heat mat, because the room that I grow in won't get that warm, so I'd like to have the bottom for that. And then I just use a full spectrum LED light over the top of that.
And how often do you check it to make sure that there's, uniform moisture there?
Well, you'll see the condensation on the dome there. I tried another method with the last batch of seeds I did from a friend in Phoenix, and what he does is he puts that cover in there, but then he uncovers it and and literally mists the top of the pot 2 to 3 times a day to keep the seeds nice and wet. And it actually worked quite well. I had tremendous germination on things that I had tried before using my old method.
And this is ongoing for months. This is just at the very beginning.
This is just until you start seeing germination.
Let's take off the humidity cover for 5 days, 6 days. Because whatever good that's done is it's into the seed already. And a couple of days later, you'll see the grain starting up.
And then you take the cover off?
Yeah, so 5, 6 days. And
If you use the mushroom compost, you do have to watch for mold.
Right.
Not very much, actually. I haven't had any problem with mold on my
Okay.
house. No LC.
I got it, mine got all white and fuzzy.
just you straight on with the seeds down and then.
And it varies quite a bit whether you're talking, as you said, of Echinocactus cactus seed, or I grow quite a few Lissa, and the seed in
hard to see those.
I take my glasses off, it's smaller than.
Some seeds have to be cool.
Right.
You heat them, you'll
yeah.
kill them.
I did try lift ups for the first time. I've never grown lift ups from with fine guys. And they work beautifully in just a room in your house. I put the pot with the soil mix, put the grit on top, sprinkled the lift up because there's like dust. Misted those in and put that pot in a Ziploc bag under the light. And the things are just boiling up like grass at like 70 to 72 degrees.
Yeah, some plants need to stay cool, as Dave was saying. Listen, and many of the residents, it appears to me you need to keep the temperature, soil surface temperature below like 80 degrees. Cactus, most of them are hot, and go ahead.
How are you guys holding up? We've been at this for over an hour.
I was thinking you could have a class.
You have to have a program on greenhouses. Right. And we have to have a program on seed sowing. How about two more quick questions and then we'll call it a night. Lynn?
I have one, recommendation for a succulent other than, Hensington at 7,000 feet. If you were gonna put succulents in with your cactus, outside, what would your recommendation be?
There's lots of agaves, there's quite a few methods that you could do, like Phalaenopsis, Somadium.
What was that?
Feed them.
Yeah.
Phalaenopsis, Rabia,
Rudica.
I'm gonna have to get with you afterwards, because with my hearing problem and my difficulties with scientific names, I'm gonna need somebody to tell them for me.
Okay, one more quick question. Talk about cutting. How do you cut it? Well, I'll say a few words about cutting. In general, you take the cuttings, if you have rooting hormone, it sure doesn't hurt to dip them into rooting powder. And you can get rooting powder maybe at Lowe's, but for sure at Amazon. And dip them in there and let them sit out for a few days, not in the hot sun, but sheltered.
Yeah, or you can use the big Lodwig acid. Super glue. Cut it, glue it, so it
That's
doesn't
right.
dehydrate,
I forgot about super glue.
and stick them in a pot a minute later. Well, maybe not a minute later, 2 minutes.
Well, the reason thanks to super glue, I guess it was developed for human wounds.
Super glue was developed in World War II to glue the buildings together in the war, because they're getting, kind of cut up and torn up, killed out there in the battlefield. You can't get a field hospital out there everywhere. And after World War II, the use stopped for reasons that I can't figure out. I've had a bunch of operations in the last few years. I've got 2 hips in me. They did the heart thing over here where they open up my chest and sew the heart back up again, put it together. I've got a pacemaker here, and I've got 18 titanium screws in my back, along with six plastic discs. And 4 titanium rods.
He's a freaking robot.
And I was super glued together. All those things.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Not just
Absolutely.
still, but more.
The only scar I have on me is the one where they took the ribs apart to get at the heart. So I've got a scar running down here. But all the rest of those operations, you can hardly see where they went in and out. Yeah.
Well,
The reason super glue is great is it tends to kill everything that it touches. Yeah. Organic chemistry thing. Super glue monomer is the most amazingly toxic material you can possibly think of. But the minute it hits water, it polymerizes and makes the crush
and that's all totally innocuous, the polymer. The monomer will kill you. Oh, if you use super glue, don't sit in the sun in closed space and breathe that in. No. Because, yeah, you're gonna, you won't like it. I sit in moving air.
Well, I guess this has been quite successful. We'll do it more often. Thanks everybody for coming.